What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the videos. Today we're working on the Bronco. So you guys saw last time we did the lift, so we have the Icon 3-inch spacer lift on there. Now we're going to be doing the wheels and tires. So the wheels and tires I've chosen are actually Black Rhino Beadlocks. So these are the wheels and tires that we went with, and I've already mounted 4 of them, and I have 5 because we have the full-size spare in the back. These are the wheels and tires. These are the Black Rhino Rifts, and the specs that I went with are 17 by 8.5 and -30. So these are pretty aggressive. And I went with 37 by 12.5 by 17 inch, obviously, for the wheel. These are BF Goodrich KM3s. So the cool thing about the KM3s is they have this side bite tread pattern, which is really cool. It's actually gonna help like kind of deflect the rocks from what I've seen. Also, you have these really thick lugs. Also, there's lots of space here. One of the things that I really dislike about the stock Sasquatch wheels and tires is they are rock throwers. So unless you have like mud flaps or side steps or something like that, you will probably scratch the side of your car by throwing gravel, or if you just never hit gravel roads, you're fine. So I'm gonna PPF the side of mine, but I also am doing new tires, which are better for this. Also, there's lots of reviews on the KM3s. This is an update from the KM2, so they have a lot of technology and R&D that went into it. Plus, I don't know if you guys know this, but BF Goodrich and Michelin are the same brand. And if you guys know, Michelin are like the top tire manufacturers because that's what Porsche comes on. That's what a lot of like supercars and stuff, they come on Michelin's. Michelin puts in a lot of technology, like their Pilot Sport 2s, I think, Pilot Super Sports. Those were like the top tire back in the day, and now they have the P4S and some other tires. So Michelin, BF Goodrich, they put a lot of R&D into their tires, and that's what made me confident enough to go with those on this Bronco. And especially when you're buying 5 of them, and these things are not cheap, it's really worthwhile to do your research and find the right tires. So when you're buying 5 tires, especially like this, and they're gonna be on there for quite a while, I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how you drive it, it's worthwhile to do your research. So that's why I ultimately chose the BF Goodrich KM3s. With this wheel design, some of the things you're gonna notice is that obviously we have no center cap. Those are gonna get screwed in with the Allen keys down there. Also, we have the multi-spoke pattern, which I really like. It's also got a little bit of concave, which is also something I really like that's kind of aggressive. Another thing too is the beadlock rings. Yes, I have the black, satin black wheels. They also come in fully machined, like a silver finish, but I went with the satin black to go with the Stormtrooper look that we have going on. Plus we also have the rock blockers. So a lot of people kind of dislike this. I like it because it's supposed to protect your wheel whenever you're getting rocks or gravel or anything like that coming up. So that way you don't actually penetrate into the face of the wheel or end up hitting like your valve stem or something like that. The setup that I'm going with, and I've already done 4 like I've said, so I've had time to kind of figure this out, and I've watched other YouTube videos, but of course, being a YouTube guy myself, I want to put my own spin on things. So I'm going to show you guys how I mounted, and didn't balance them yet, but I mounted all of the wheels and tires up until now. You're going to need some basic tools, but I'll show you guys everything along the way. Also, I did not mention this before, but I did get TPMS. So I went with TPMS on all 5, got that from Amazon, about 120 bucks, I think. I had to order a 4-pack, and then I ordered a single one of the matching TPMS set. Here we are unboxing the Black Rhinos. You're gonna get like some instructions with how to mount with some of the torque specs. I did use anti-seize, so I would suggest using anti-seize. Torque specs without it are 22, with it, it's 15.5. I'm going with anti-seize just because I don't wanna be stuck without that, or without a ring being able to come off. Right here on top, we're gonna have the ring, which I'll unbox here in a sec. Next, you have the wheels themselves. So with this, it comes super protected. All of the wheels that I've ever gotten from like TSW, which Black Rhino is a part of. I had TSW wheels, or the company wheels, on the Mustang for a while. And then now I have Black Rhinos on this, as well as my GMC truck. They always come like super well protected, and I've never had an issue in like build quality or like finish or anything like that. So right here is the wheel itself. These are 17 by 8.5, like I said. 6 by 139.7 is the bolt pattern, just in case you guys don't know, for the Bronco. You can obviously see we do not have the beadlock rings on there. Inside, you'll also find the center cap and also all of the bolts. So with this, I'm gonna leave this on a piece of cardboard so I don't scratch it up on the concrete. The best thing I've noticed is use the ring box and set it on there, and that's how you can mount the tires. So the first thing we gotta do is actually unbox everything and then make some room, put on the TPMS. So now we have the valve stem without the TPMS sensor on it. So this is what a normal valve stem would look like. Make sure you go with the rubber. I didn't mention that, but make sure you go with the rubber for off-road. The metal ones, if it hits a rock or something, you could be screwed out in the wilderness. So I would go with rubber so it's a little flexible. So what you're gonna need is a little bit of lubrication, which I just have dish soap and water. So you're just gonna spray that pretty liberally on there so that way it slides right in. Push it through, make sure this is upright so that way the TPMS actual sensor will fit right. Then you'll thread on your tool, just like so. Doesn't have to be all the way tight because then you'll spin your sensor. You just pull through, and just like that, as it pops, that means it's on. Unthread it, and now you'll have your valve stem installed. So this was something I never really understood in the past, but this is how this is done. Very, very simple process. The next thing is obviously put on your sensor, and also I'm gonna do the thread cover so that way I don't lose it, because I hate losing these little thread caps. I'm just OCD about that. And like I said, we're gonna reinstall the sensor, so that goes on like so, and you just screw it right back on there. And then we'll be able to read the pressure and everything will be set. And right now what you guys are seeing is the shop dog. You guys may have seen Oliver in a couple videos. Yeah, he's a little frog, the way he sits. Just had a good ball. Had a good balling session right there. After you've done the TPMS step or valve stem, whichever you choose, you're gonna mount the tire. And with this, these tires are not super light. They're about 80 pounds. What you're gonna need to do is determine the inside and the outside for your set of tires. For these KM3s, there's really no inside or outside. Sometimes you'll have white letters on one side and black letters on the other side. Kind of depends if that's your look, if you want white letters out or white letters in. Totally up to you. Also, sometimes on tires, I know on street cars, I don't know if it's always on off-road tires, but they have like dots for where you mount the valve stem in relation to the tire. I don't see any markings on this. I looked even inside the wheel. So I'm gonna assume that this thing can go on any direction. Plus, these are not directional, so they can be inside, outside. There's no flipping or anything like that. So to actually mount the tire, you're gonna need soapy water or some kind of lubricant to actually slip it on. I tried to do this on the 5-gallon bucket, which we'll get into later, but you'll probably wanna do this on the ground so that you can really put your weight onto it, because these things are pretty massive. And if you're mounting like 40s or 38s, it's gonna be even heavier and even bigger. So unless you're a Hulk, I'd probably just do this on the ground. So the next step is going to just be liberally spray lubricant all along the lip here. Maybe even spin it around a little bit, make sure it's nice and lubricated. From there, we're gonna put the tire on. You're gonna see like one side go in. This is the way I found to do it, is really easy, is you get that side on, and then using the lubricant, you kind of work around and bounce on it just like that. And now it's on there. So that's kind of the first step. From here, we will have to have it elevated, hence the 5-gallon bucket. So let me show you guys how I do that. To not break my back and do this on the ground, plus you're gonna need these elevated so that way you can actually have the tire rest beyond the edge of the wheel. We're using a 5-gallon bucket. They've been able to hold the weight just fine. I've sat on 5-gallon buckets previously in my life, so I feel like we can trust this thing. But you're gonna try to lift this with the wheel, which now we're talking about like 120 pounds combined. So we're gonna lift this thing, do a little deadlift, and hopefully not blow my back out. All right, 1, 2, 3, go, bitch. Got it. Almost blew out my flip-flop. On the Black Rhinos, you guys might see that there's like a little lip here. I don't know if this is all beadlocks. These are my first ever beadlocks. But you can see how we're covering some of the holes here on this side. This has like almost a self-centering ring. So what I found is spraying a little lubricant, aka soapy water, all along here. You're gonna see me work the ring to center the tire onto the face of the wheel. And from there, we should be good to go. So it just kind of pops in there. If you can showcase that. So as I work this, you'll see how it pops along that edge. And this is all done with my hand, so it's not super hard. And then from there, there you go, hear that pop. I don't know if you did, actually, you're probably just hearing me breathe. But with that pop, now it's all centered along the ring and you can feel around and make sure that it's all on there. After you place the tire onto the wheel, is you're just gonna tentatively place this ring, right? We're not gonna actually start bolting anything. One of the things to note on this set of wheels, keep in mind for your wheels as well, these have the rock blockers, right? So you don't want the valve stem sticking behind this because it might be hard to deflate and inflate later. So make sure you line up the valve stem in this area, because if you don't notice that and you've already bolted and torqued all these down, it's not gonna be a good day. So just make sure that you line that up with the opening for the valve stem. The next step is optional if you would like. I'm gonna run anti-seize though, because the last thing I want is having a stuck ring out on the trail or trying to do new tires or something like that in a few years. I just don't want to be stuck and having to cut something off of my very expensive beadlock wheels. So with that, I'm gonna run anti-seize because it takes an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and you wear gloves because it gets freaking everywhere. But from there, you'll be able to kind of guarantee that this won't have issues in the future. I recommend putting on the washer first, and then a little dab will do you. So this is pretty much like, that's all it needs. So I just do a little cord of thread there, maybe a little too goopy. For me, this feels about right, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this. So to make this as fast as possible, I'm gonna do all washers and anti-seize at once, and then we'll start to place them into the beadlock ring. Now that we have the anti-seize on the bolts, you guys saw that, the next step's obviously just put them in. I started all of the threads just hand tight, just so that way it's not being like put in cross thread or anything like that. You do not want to cross thread these. That's going to be a bad time in the future. The next step is just to hand tighten, and we're going to do this kind of in a star pattern. Now the way I'm kind of marking, because I have the rock blockers, is kind of working 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I move to the right, and I go just like across from it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually 3, 4. See, I'm all messed up. No, 3. I don't know. You're gonna have to figure out your own pattern depending on your wheels. But basically what you don't wanna do is just go 1, 2, 3. Like, you don't wanna go around in a circle. What that is, ultimately, like what your goal is with this is you do not wanna like clamp on crooked and then bend the beadlock ring. So that's like your biggest worry there. Especially if you have thinner beadlock rings. These ones are pretty tough and pretty thick, so I'm not too worried about it here. But the way I'm going to work this is do like 3 on each, you know, across from each other around the opening for the rock blocker. I'm trying to think of words are hard. So I'm going to do the 3, and then from there I'm going to do these in between ones just really quickly and just do them 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever it is. And that's just going to speed up the process, because ultimately this is what takes super long. Because then when you do the 15.5 foot-pounds, you have to do it a couple of times in a circle after you've done your star, because as you keep torquing, the next one slightly loosens because it's starting to clamp a little bit more and more. So the way I do it is pretty much do it all by hand, get it nice and tight, then start to go around in a circle, torquing them all about 2 or 3 times. So that way by the end of it, you should be able to go on every single bolt and it'll click at the right torque. And that's how you know everything is torqued down.
Boy, he's
Back
so
to flop.
beautiful.
Back to flop. He's a good boy. Okay. Look at him. He's literally on my foot. What a shop dog.
It's his pillow.
Oh my gosh. After you've gotten all these just kind of hand tight, getting them down so that way you're sucking down the ring, is going to be torquing them. So I put it at 15.5 foot-pounds. Now I've seen some where it says you want to step it up, where you want to go to like 8 foot-pounds and then 10 foot-pounds and then move up to your actual weight of 15, right? What this one says is just 15.5, right? So I'm going to go for that. And the thing I'm going to do is set my grounder, a couple of anchor ones across, and then I'm going to go around in a circle. So after I have this one torqued, I'm going to go across and do the next one. And then from there, we'll kind of set our anchors for the diagonals and all that. And then we can actually go around in a circle and work through all of this. Alrighty, so this has all been retorqued and torqued and torqued again and again, probably about 4 times now. So this is all good to go. You can also kind of feel the heads. They should be pretty much level with your ring rather than sticking up. So you can tell if anything's loose there. Also, feel along the bottom. You should pretty much have the metal touching metal at that point, because it should be so clamped on. So you can see here that the back bead is actually not done yet. Basically, you're just gonna have to air it up. Probably around 5 PSI, this thing pops itself on. You don't need a ratchet strap, or I found I haven't needed one. And that's because I just spray that soapy water all along this wheel and the bead, and it pretty much just pops itself out about 5 PSI. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not gonna showcase that, because really all you're gonna do is put an air compressor on, blow it up until it's about 5 whatever PSI, and then keep filling it up, and you're gonna hear that pop. Just be careful, obviously, don't put your fingers in there, don't be dumb. I think if you're gonna do that, you probably should be rocking with beadlocks anyways, because if you're putting your hand in that, you're just asking for trouble. So really, everything is pretty much done. I'm gonna air this up tomorrow just because I wanna be courteous to my neighbors. But that's pretty much it. That's how you mount beadlocks. We mounted 37 by 12.5 BFG KM3s. It's a really big mouthful. And we put those on the Black Rhino Rifts, which are 17 by 8.5 minus 30. So these should look really good. I'm just gonna roll one over and just show you guys what they look like on the Bronco. These are what they look like lined up against the Bronco, and obviously they're not mounted or anything. Actually, the back bead isn't even set, but I just want to line them up against it so you guys can kind of get an idea. But that's what it'll look like. Obviously, it's sticking out really far, so you're seeing the top of the tread there. But this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the tread difference. So see how this has a big groove and less blocks? These things are absolute gravel rock throwers. I'm hoping these ones, because it's got such big grooves on it, they kind of just slip right out and doesn't throw anything. So I do already have a couple of scratches or whatever, like from trails. So I got some on my fender, got one on the side, and I did not get PPF done yet. So yeah, it's starting to get its little love marks. I already actually have a crack in my windshield. That's gonna pretty much wrap up the video, and this kind of gives you guys a tutorial of how to mount beadlocks and big off-road tires on pretty much anything. So if you have a side-by-side like a Razor or a Can-Am Maverick and you have beadlocks, you can do this. And if you have 40s, it's basically the same thing. So it's really like self-explanatory. Maybe the bolts and maybe the rings look a little bit different, but for the most part, the process is all the same. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up right here. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.